your kids will grow up. They will see that hardship as being evident and a natural part of life. Like between your drive to do better for your kids and your kids' drive to have a better life, they're going to be okay. I've been thinking about this idea where people want to control what nature does, right? Like they want to prevent pregnancy, or they don't want to have children at a certain age, or they don't want to get married too early, but it's well known that humans are most happy and content and stable in our monogamous state, and that when a person is in a family unit, they have the most support. So when young people are told like you should hold off on marriage, they're not accounting for the fact that all these women who are waiting to be 30 or something before they get married are going to have a lot more trouble getting pregnant. I don't understand why this is being taught to people or praised as being the best way to go in life. Most people, I would say, nowadays are looking for something outside of the family. They want to explore, they want to adventure. They're thinking that there's going to be some higher level of fulfillment. And I think there's something of that to be found in your single life. I don't think everybody's cut out for single life. I think for a lot of people, you're better off going straight from your parents' house into marriage. But the reason I think it's number one is because of procreation. Because you can procreate, you can create more people together as a younger person. So when you have a family is the ideal layout for bringing new people into the world, okay? Because that way you have a tag team and you can take turns on the child, and 2 is always enough, almost always, barring extreme hardships. And then that's what you have your family and extended family for. This idea that like you shouldn't have kids if you're not ready, right? Oh, you're too young, you shouldn't have children. Putting the marriage thing to the side for a minute, I want to say having children makes you grow. It makes you become something more than what you started out as. You take accountability and responsibility for the life of another being. That is a different lifestyle. That is a different level of person. Think about people at work. Think about people who are supervisors at work versus people who are always in the position of being supervised, or they're just on their own, right? Like a tradesman or something might work on his own. He might not really be supervised necessarily. But the people who are supervisors have an insight into the human condition that you don't get otherwise. So it changes you as a person when you become a parent. It changes your attitude, it changes your outlook on the world, it changes your priorities. Another thing that happens too with children is like I've noticed that when people grow up in hardship or people grow up in poverty or struggle, it really does form their mindset to be more strong, more independent, more capable, and more solution-oriented people. I had an ex-girlfriend that basically raised her siblings. I had some friends in the military that I knew who were the best men. By the way, the best men I knew in the military talked about how hard their life was as a child, how hard their father was on them was a specific one that I heard a lot. But think about poverty, right? Think about being poor as a child. Now, I understand, like, if you're poor and you live in a bad neighborhood and everything you're exposed to is bad, you're going to have a surplus of negative things, flowing in and out of you at any given time because you've had bad inputs for a very long time. But I'm talking about good, honest, hardworking citizens, people that are just living life, doing their best, and trying to live morally and live by some sort of a moral code, right? Some sort of faith, some sort of belief system that says right is right and wrong is wrong. So people like that in my lifetime that I've known are the most productive citizens. I see as being one of the major problems of our time the lack of productiveness among the citizens. I get it. I understand. It feels like here in America, you get taxed just to take a breath. I mean, you literally pay taxes and it goes to the EPA to keep the air clean. You literally pay taxes on air, right? So it is just another level right now. Everything that you do has been touched by the regulatory system, and it's too complicated, it's too hard, and so you might as well just do nothing, right? In China, they call it lie flat. And it's a big thing here in the U.S. too, but I think I call it live with your mommy, because all these people that don't need a job, the only reason they don't need a job is because somebody else is carrying them. But these freeloaders, these lazy people, they never experience hardship and poverty, okay? Or if they did, they didn't experience it to the fullest. Because when I experienced poverty, it made me never want to be poor again. And this is a story that I've heard many times in my life. So I think that's where part of that drive to change the world comes from, when you grow up and struggle. Children are small, they don't eat that much food. Oh, kids are so expensive. You can have a child in your basement, like you can have a child in a kiddie pool. I mean, it's literally a thing that people do. You can have a kiddie pool and some towels and have somebody there to help you out in case you need to go to the hospital if there's an emergency, okay? So you can have a baby, the baby feeds off of the mother, you don't even have to feed the baby food. The baby's just sucking milk out of the mother, helping her lose weight again, and then taking calories out of her systems, you know, and then when the child gets older, they're still eating less food, and they'll eat pretty much anything you give them too when they're a baby, when you first start eating. And then as they get older, you know, schooling, you got homeschooling. You don't have to take your kids to sports. You don't have to take your kids to all this stuff. It's not mandatory. You don't have to be the number one super duper soccer mom with a nice car, with a great house in a good neighborhood and an awesome school system. You can homeschool. You can live in a bad school system and be poor and just homeschool. Your kids will grow up. They will see that hardship as being evident and a natural part of life. And they will have a desire to make it better and change it. And they might have better opportunities than you had before you procreated. But I'm going to tell you, like, between your drive to do better for your kids and your kids' drive to have a better life, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. People grow up in rich families and become poor. You know, wasters, you know, and people grow up in poor families and become wealthy all the time. It's constant here in America, okay? I realize that people say, like, the systems and stuff, but the system isn't built against you here in America. It's a free system, which means that you have to get into, like, a box, and then once you're in the box, then you can move around in it. So, like me right now, I just now in the last 6 years started having tree business, and that's my box. You know, I'm in that now, and now I have an educational certification and certification. And the certification allows me to do tree service in states that are restrictive, like Oregon, or I could go to Germany or Britain, and I could subcontract. So I've expanded inside of that box, but you have to get in there first, right? So you either have to get the education. The education is not enough because you could still not get a job in that field. You have to get the education and the job. You can usually get the job before the education, and that works out just fine. And that way you know if you like it before you waste 4 years or 2 years on studying it. Your potential progress here in America is great. So that whole thing like, oh, my kids aren't going to have a good life because they didn't play football, and like I can't afford to buy football jerseys because I'm poor. That's not a good reason not to have children. Now, me personally, I disagree with birth control. I think birth control is interfering with something that mankind ought not to be in control of, but God provided it for us. We were able to achieve it through scientific study, and so it's a part of our existent lifestyle and world today. So it's there. But I disagree with the choice personally. I would never do it. My wife and I never did birth control. I think birth control is for people who are having sex out of wedlock and they don't want to get pregnant. I disagree with it. The concept that your children are going to cost you too much money and that you can't afford it is incorrect, because you will make more money as you get older, as you remain stable. You provide stability for your children. As you continue to strive to provide stability, you drive for money. You begin to understand the need for additional money, and you do more things that can help you, whether it's doing less spending at those expensive places. You stop buying the name brands. You move into a cheaper place. You try to get a side hustle. I'll tell you what I did. When I got married, I was barely making enough to live on my own, okay? I had roommates. And so paying the apartment was like how I saved money, by having a roommate pay half. And so when I got married, I was paying the whole thing. And my wife and I our agreement was she's going to stay at home. So She stayed at home, and I struggled to pay the bills. And I went out, and I was working machine shop, so I was off work at like 2:30 every day. And so I would, because it was that way. So I would get off work and I would go home and I would start doing handyman work for people. And I sold my car. I had a Pontiac, and I bought a pickup truck, and I began to do landscaping, lawn mowing, handyman. I was handing out business cards. It was my side hustle, and I was making enough money to make ends meet that way. And I got more and more tree work, and I was good at cutting trees. I was very careful and planned everything out. And eventually, I quit my job, and my business now makes enough money to pay all the bills. We have a nice house. We like it. We have some land. We live far away out of the city, where it's kind of I prefer it here, and my family gets to use the land and go outside and play whenever they want. It's all fenced in and private. And so this all happened for us after I was a brokey. I mean, I was like making 17 an hour, and anybody who knows anything about money knows a single income of 17 an hour is a struggling life, financially speaking. You're not doing anything extra. You're doing basic stuff, right? You're saving up to try to get things together. You're trying to hustle up money from here or there. But that drive to provide my wife and my kids a better life was what made me, I guess, branch out, right? Bills had to get paid. It's like, how am I going to do it? And then this brings me to the relationship between the husband and wife. Going back to marriage and marrying young, young women, I don't think are really interested in young men, because even though they're the same age, they're not equals on social things. Okay, so men understand when we hit puberty, we begin immediately to understand that we have the upper hand physically with women. Girls get strong usually before boys do because of early puberty. But once the boys hit puberty, they are now physically dominant, and that is understood. They're the ones that are lifting heavy stuff. They're the ones that are doing the hard work, and they're the protectors. So I'm not saying women don't do hard work, by the way. I'm just saying that the men have to take that role and begin that, it makes the most sense. If someone is better at something, then you let them do it, let that be their job. So this is the deal, that young girls begin to have social acceleration, and they are exposed to lots of people. They're treated nicely. The world is always open to them. Opportunities are there. People are kind. People are open. People are willing to talk. Boys are more abrasive, and definitely a harder material to form. And so boys mature slower than girls at the beginning. I think it's because girls become pretty, and boys are still a lot of time lanky, dorky, small, weak, unintelligent, unstudied, unwise, rash, all these various things that I think get fine-tuned out through social exposure. So I think the girls at a certain age, say 18, 20, right? Girls at 20 don't really want to marry 20-year-old guys. Most 20-year-old guys at that time, if they're a Chad, they're just having every girl they can and moving on. And if they're like regular, then they're not getting any attention from women, and the girls aren't interested because the guy doesn't have anything to show for himself, like good looks, money, long-standing career, his own house, whatever. So the thing that I want to bring out is that even though the girls are farther ahead socially, we know this to be true. You can see it. It's because the attractiveness of a young woman attracts social attention, right? So women are socialized before men. Boys are boys have a lot of behaviors naturally and intrinsically that isolate them and separate them from other people. So, just abrasive sort of qualities. And so those need to be fine-tuned, but a boy is not attentive to that sort of thing. Now, I think for the sake of a girl, I think a boy will change some of that stuff, but in general, I think boys have it harder. Now, we are the unattractive sex, right? That's why they call women the fair sex. But boys and men, because of a lack of physical appeal, must have some other kind of appeal. Now, strength is only good for what you use it for, right? A girl there's no strength in being photographed. Take a picture of a beautiful woman, it's going to get looks online. But a man has to actually do something. And he might be extremely good looking. I'm saying that would get a lot of looks probably. But what I'm saying is that the men go through this sort of tumbler, if you will, for the first part of our life, okay? We experience a different type of hardship. We have less people that are trying to help us most of the time. In general, a woman could just say help, and like people would come and try to help. I think people would come for a man too, but women find it easier to get help. I've seen it. We've all seen it. We know it's true. And so because of that, a guy is isolated. He's alone. He feels the hurt from his wrongs. If he doesn't do right, if he doesn't maneuver his life properly, if he makes bad decisions, if he's disagreeable with people, he has repercussions for that. And so men oftentimes will have a hard and lonely path for a period of time. And in that hard and lonely path, a man becomes more and more and more centered on being a solution-oriented person, on being able to suffer and endure that suffering, improving his ability to overcome obstacles, life obstacles, financial obstacals, various things. Now, I don't think men truly accelerate socially until they have exposure to women. I think when a man has his opportunity to develop as a social creature once he has a woman in his life. Now, most boys spurn their mother's love. A mother is perfectly fine for teaching the children the social things, but if the mother is trying to enforce discipline and power over the boys, then she will never be used as a social development tool for them. So the boys that are handsome get attention from girls, and they develop socially. And then because they develop socially, then they're less abrasive, and they're able to advance usually faster in their career. For me, I've always been abrasive. I still am, but more polished than I used to be since I've married my wife. I've been brought into social circles. I talk to my wife about social things. She helps me to overcome and put aside various struggles that I have, social struggles. Even if she hasn't gone through them, she's a great sounding board. That relationship, sort of nurturing back and forth style of relationship that holds, that loves, and doesn't let go of someone, that's not something that a man has without women. Men don't have that with each other, in my experience. Most of the time, if a man is pushing another man away, or he's abrasive and he's going through a struggle, then the man will give him more space, whereas a woman wants to come into your circle and find out what's the matter. So that's the kind of relationships that helps a man, I think, become more socially adept. And then social adeptness allows the man to advance in his career, because you must accommodate other people through courtesy and just social cues, body language, all the different things, decision-making, conversations, very careful to use specific words and not other words. This is all related. This is all taught and learned through that feminine walk, that feminine relationship style. Then men are able to, because of their development as a young man and their struggle and their rashness and how they've had some hard hits in life, and they understand repercussions, consequences. Men understand consequences very well. We think about solutions all the time. And or we wish for solutions, and then hopefully we come up with solutions. And a woman will often live her life thinking everything is just grand because people are always helping. Her solution is that somebody else is doing it for her, instead of, I need to have a solution that I can do for this myself. So this is why oftentimes you'll hear relationship people say, like, if your wife is tell you about her struggles, she doesn't want you to solve it. She wants you to listen. But on one side of it, you have the feminine relationship development, where a man needs to learn how to listen, because listening to people is part of being socially adept. But the woman needs to understand that getting advised on a solution is the ultimate outcome. In other words, one is truth, one is mercy. So the man's lifestyle represents mercy, or truth, because what is, and what's going to hit you is going to hit you, and it's going to hit you that hard, and it's going to hurt so much. And this is the only way to avoid it, or this is one of the ways to avoid it, and you should do it. So this is a self-inflicted evil. This is something that guys learn early on. I've learned a lot about self-inflicted evils. So so a man can teach the woman about consequences because women haven't learned that. And that will help a woman be a very happy and productive member of society. There's a higher level of happiness there. It's the same for a guy. Being socialized, being accepted in society, that only happens once those rough edges are gone. And you need a woman to do that. So what I'm promoting is that a young woman who's, mature and moral, and a young man who's mature and moral. The young men are going to be less mature, okay? Because maturity is a social metric. It's not, I don't care what anybody says, maturity is 100% social. And so when people say you're immature, it's because of social cues, social conditioning, and social behavior. So the man can help the woman just as the woman can help the man. A woman may perceive that the man has nothing to offer, but that is incorrect. Now, I think a boy has to go through a certain amount of pain, suffering, and buffeting to become a man, to have those lessons, okay? That formation into manhood should happen as early as possible. As soon as he starts having those dreams at night, that boy should be exposed to severity. Harsh severity from a father figure. A lot of boys get that in sports. I think a father in the home is better because he can actually lay hands on you. So I believe that a young marriage puts two people at the fastest possible rate of acceleration. The man should be learning the social qualities and attributes that matter to that partner so that he can become that. The woman should be learning those solutions and that mindset, that philosophy. That philosophy, which is solution-minded and filled with inspiration, that comes from the man. And the woman should be learning that as early as possible because it's still at the final solidifying years of the brain, right? 21, 22, 23. With those two being married, I would say they're on a good track, but they need help. They need other people in their life. Like, this is the thing, we're just going to go out and do our own thing. We're going to elope. We're going to go elope. These ridiculous ideas. But you know what? I get it. Fine. But you need social help. You need other people to support you in your venture of marriage. You can't be out here alone. That's the thing. You need grandparents. You need parents. This thing where I'm going to follow my career. I'm going to move far away. I don't know if that's really the best thing. And I realize we live in this world and you have to go places if you want something. You got to go far. The thing that you need and want isn't close by. Sometimes it's far away. And you can look and look. And there was a time and every town had to have a smith, and every town had a bar, and every town had a, seamstress, and so forth and so on. And you get what you needed in town. If you couldn't, you could mail out for it, and it would come in a couple months, or whatever, a couple weeks if they sent the stagecoach or the transportation, the train or whatever it was. But the times have changed, and if you want something, sometimes you order out for it and it comes from California and you live on the East Coast. But everything is a day away or a couple days away now, and so the world has changed in that regard. I want to wrap up by saying the summary of this, which is you should not wait too long to get married. You should marry young and procreate. And you should not wait too long to have children because money is not a good reason not to have children. Children will make you richer in ways that you could not possibly imagine. They will not hinder your financial wealth. Another thing I will say is an adjoinder to this is that the single income household is the solution for most of these problems related to finance and children. Most people who have children that find it expensive are the ones that have a dual income household and the woman is unwilling to quit her job and stay at home. And the man is never going to achieve his high level because he's not coming to her for counsel as a help to him. She's going to be advising him from the perspective of her job and career. And so it's not the same. A woman at home is going to spend time thinking about that husband and praying for him. It's a completely different equation. So the stay-at-home mom solves the money problem, it solves the relationship problem, and the inspiration problem for the man. And it makes a man become more alpha. I was never alpha until I was married to my wife. I wasn't beta either. I was a going your own way type of male. I don't know what that is. Maybe Sigma. I have no idea, but I was like a reject male. I actually have autism, so I didn't know this at the time, but I had various struggles related to that and the social setbacks related to that. a misunderstanding of body language and social cues is all integrated into that part of my life. But yeah, getting married is a great thing for people to do young. You're not going to miss your vision. You're not going to miss your adventure. You know, the adventures aren't quite as great as they're made out to be. I think the world sells you false hopes and dreams. I know some people go through life and they say, I wouldn't do anything different. I've had an amazing life. It was worth it. I'm glad I had a child out of wedlock. I'm glad I waited till I was 30. I'm glad I never got married. You know, I'm glad I pursued my career and traveled the world instead of starting a family. But these things, and I'm not going to try to like change the world socially speaking. Like, people are going to continue to do this regardless of what I say. But if you start a family and have kids, you will not regret it. So I'm arguing for family. I'm arguing for starting families. I disagree with the idea that waiting to start a family is a good idea. I think you should find love. You should find it soon. You should settle, and you should accept that the flaws that a person has is what makes them the real deal. I realize a divorce is a huge problem, and I don't really know the solution for that. I do know that the desperate need for a partner has made me a lot more likely to stay with a partner. I think maybe that is a positive, but the desire to stay together is a lot weaker these days than it was in the past. Women are constantly divorcing men. Maybe marriage gets a bad rap because of so much divorce, and divorce is extremely high, and that's a topic for a different discussion. I think the goal should be to figure out how can we get people to get married and stay married and have children at a younger age. I was 27 when I married my wife. She was 27. Actually, she was 26. And so we were right there at the tail end of youth. You know, I mean, 30, you're not youth anymore. I'd say 25 probably. But anyway, I hope this video has any value to you guys. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I definitely would appreciate any subscriptions that I get. And if there's any issues or points that you'd like to comment and debate on this, I would definitely be open to that in the comments section. So good luck out there and have a great day.